Power of power.
Everybody put your hands up.
Well, welcome to the Extraordinary Drummer Show. Today, I tell you, I'm just flabbergasted. I've loved this guy since I can remember even thinking of a drum kit. We all came from him one way or another. So many great questions you guys have sent in today. Would you help me welcome from T.O.P. Tower of Power, David Garibaldi. Hey, David!
Cheron, a pleasure, brother. Thank you so much for having me today. This is awesome.
Pleasure's ours, man. Pleasure is definitely ours. How you doing?
I'm well, thank you. Living large, as large as I can with, given the circumstances these days. It's all good.
You looking good, man.
Thank you.
You're looking good. Tell me, what are you doing during this pandemic and this quarantine? What have you been up to?
Well, aside from what my friends call, eat, sleep, repeat, aside from doing that, I've been, practicing a lot. I have a book project I'm working on. I started teaching, online, Skype lessons, that kind of stuff. A few master classes, things are happening like that. Working in my studio here. My studio, this is in my garage. And so I've not ever had to have it other than just a practice place. I would come home from the road and I would come in here on, when I was home and I'd work. And so now I'm kind of using it, for things like this and for, I'm going to wire it for recording and all of that stuff. So I've never had to do that before. So that's my summer and my kind of like activities now is, putting all that stuff together, so it's a lot, it's fun though.
David, I want to go all the way back. Take us all the way back to the beginning. When did you know that you wanted to become a drummer?
Oh, well, I guess I was 10 years old and I started getting into, drums then, and started in school band, marching band and concert band and all of that stuff. And then in high school, I started with the drum set, and we were in the band room one day at school and there was an older kid playing a drum set. I'd never really been able to do it myself before. I'd never even tried it. I liked what it was, but I never even was that close and actually, I can do this now. So he gets up, he's playing rock and roll beats, and he gets up and I sit down and the room is empty. Everybody had left and I sat down and I kind of played by myself for a second and I could do what I heard him do. And I'm going, holy, this is fantastic. And so, it just kind of awoke, awakened something within me that I just continued then to, to pursue. And I think when I was like 17, I had started playing. My parents let me go out and kind of play around. And it was, Tuesday nights, I played in a big Glenn Miller kind of band that was like with all these older guys. And they were real nice to me. I couldn't just play worth it, but they were just really cool. And they kind of mentored me and helped me along. And so at 17 years old, I kind of got this picture of what I wanted to be, this kind of drummer that I wanted to be. 17, 18, right in there. And it was pretty powerful. I remember my friends took me to see James Brown. I'd never seen James Brown before. And I had his recordings, because Live at the Apollo was, everybody was talking about that. And the original Live at the Apollo recording. And so we went to see him at the San Jose Civic Auditorium here in the Bay Area. And he would come to the Bay Area all the time. He would play a place called the Cow Palace in San Francisco. He'd play the Oakland Civic Auditorium and the San Jose Civic Auditorium. So he was kind of always around. So they took me down there to see him. It was in the middle of the afternoon. We went and we walk in. Nobody stops us. They're rehearsing. James Brown band is rehearsing. We walk up to the stage and nobody stopped us. Nobody said anything to us. 3 little dudes were sitting there in the front of the stage and just watched the rehearsal. It was killer. And then we went back that night, we watched the show. I'd never seen anything like that before. And that kind of like, it was another moment, I guess. And I realized that this is like, I want to be in a band like that. I want to play like that. I think the drummer was Clayton Filia. And I want to play like that.
Do you remember when you got your first drum kit?
Yeah, I was in high school. I was a senior in high school, and my parents took me to this place in San Leandro, which is here in the East Bay, called Music Unlimited, and they bought me a drum set. And I still got them. I used them. I used them on. You know, some Tower Power recordings, and it was, you know, kind of the set that I first took out on the road with me, because it's all I had. And so, you know, it's still here. I'm going to get them refurbished and all that stuff, but I still got them here, you know, here at my house, you know.
What are they, Ludwigs or Remos or something?
Slingerland.
Oh, so you was a Slingerland guy back in the day.
Well, I had no choice. That was what my parents bought me. But, you know, you know, that was kind of like a big deal. You know, Slingerland, Rogers, you know, Ludwig, those were the big, you know, Gretsch, those were the big drum companies, American drum companies then, you know.
So going back in high school, did you play around in bands or around the city and make a name for yourself? How did you start that off?
Well, to be honest, I couldn't play worth a shit. I had more.
We can't imagine that.
I'm not kidding. I just wasn't there yet. You know, I just had passion and I was excited about it, and I would play with my friends. And, you know, I think right after high school, I started having my own bands and kind of, you know, had a rock and roll band. We would play around here locally, and my dad, he would like rent this local hall, and, you know, in those days when you could do that sort of thing, and he would do the security. It was a small little community here, and, you know, the local kids would come and all that. The place is still there here in downtown Livermore where I live.
Wow.
And so, you know, the place where I began playing, you know, it's like right here in town still. You know, I drive by there all the time, and that was where I, you know, kind of started. So yeah, you know, at that point is when I started going out to play and having bands. And then the military came after that, you know, so that kind of interrupted things a little bit.
Did you do the march and snare drum in the military?
I did. I was in the Air Force Band. I was in the 724th Air Force Band up in McCoy Air Force Base in Tacoma, Washington. And I had gone into the Air Force because I didn't want to go into the draft. I got drafted into the Army. Everybody did. You know, that was Vietnam. And if you got drafted, that's where you were going. You were going to Vietnam. But you could, if you enlisted in any other of the services prior to your draft date, then you could go into that service to fulfill your military obligation. So that's what I did. I went into the Air Force as a clerk just to get it done so that I could come back and continue with my life. Well, and basic training, somebody comes around, the sergeant one day comes around, he says, "Who plays an instrument in here?" And so I raised my hand, said, "Come with me." And I went over to the band barracks there at San Antonio, Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas, where we were doing basic training. And I auditioned with the band, and I still wasn't very good. I don't know how when I finally got my orders, it said Air Force Band, and I couldn't believe it. I was going to be playing music while I was in the military. So that was really, really a blessing, you know, a cool thing. God was watching out for me there, you know. So I came back to the Bay Area and met Mike. I got involved being a sub in this band called the Reality Sandwich. And it was a bunch of drug dealers and crazy people. And we were playing at this place called the On Broadway in Oakland, downtown Oakland. And Mike was also subbing for the guy. So that's how we met. We'd taken turns subbing for this drummer. And the guys from Tower of Power, two of the horn players, Mick Gillette and Skip Mesquite, who now passed away, they would come in to play. One night they came in and asked if I was interested in checking out the band. They had this band called the Tower of Power. And they had won this Battle of the Bands at the Fillmore West on Tuesday night. They used to have this thing called Sounds of the City, and it was like a battle of the bands. And the prize was a recording contract. And so TOP, Tower, had won this recording contract, and the producer had told them that I'm going to give you, give the drummer and your guitar player 6 months. And if that doesn't come up to the standard I'm looking for, he said we have to replace them. So I guess they were going to have to make a replacement. So they asked me to come and play. I saw it the first time I saw it. I knew I was going to be in. I was going, man, this is every kind of music that I had enjoyed listening to, and James Brown and everything. It was there. They were doing it. They were doing original music and really obscure cover songs that you would never have even imagined anybody doing unless you knew music. And so they were doing all that stuff, but arranging everything kind of in their own way. And they had a really cool vibe, a great singer, Rick Stevens, and actually Rick Stevens and Ruth Jones. They had two singers at the time, and they hated each other and wouldn't sing together, but they both were in the band. So it was really crazy. And so, Rocco was like really young. He was like 18 and had a great sound already. And so they were badass then. They had a vibe already. So I knew I was going to be in it. I auditioned for them, and it was magic. We just fell in together and started rolling from that point on.
People ask me about your reading. When did you start to read, and how did it become so much syncopation that it seems like you can take Mary Had a Little Lamb and turn it into chop suey?
I started reading, right away, so like reading has always been a part of how I've learned. And then when I lived in Los Angeles, all the gigs were reading. And so LA was like, at the time I was there, was like a freelance kind of a vibe, so I was there for about 10 years. And so every gig had a book of charts that you had to learn how to read. And so I learned how to do it like the studio guys do it, and read really quickly and interpret a piece of music and making it sound like you rehearsed it for 10 years before, and you only looked at it one time. I could do that. And so I just didn't like the vibe there, in LA. It wasn't me, but still the reading was just a skill that I really developed there to a pretty high degree. And then it just kind of always stayed with me. So I use it as a way that I learn. I have, where is it? Oh, this thing. I have notebooks that have all of my practice stuff in it, things I work on, ideas, I always got what I call an active notebook all the time. And so here's one page from February 10th of this year, right here. So, I just put all this stuff together and I write it down, and use it as like, I just kind of develop things from it. I practice, and if I like an idea, I'll just record it in here, that's just how I like to learn. And so it still comes down to your imagination.
While I have you at the drum kit, would you, if you're able to play there, would you explain and break down on the drum kit Oakland Stroke for us? What the heck are you doing on Oakland Stroke, man?
Let's take San Francisco to Oakland, California. Get up! Hey, I found the stroke. I found the Oakland Stroke. Hey, I found the stroke. I found the Oakland Stroke.
So what you're doing is you putting stuff in other places where it should be on a kick drum. You moved it to the hi-hat and in different places.
Yeah, just kind of mixed it up based on some music that I liked and just getting ideas, and so that Oakland Stroke was, before it was Oakland Stroke, it was just a jam that we were doing in rehearsal. And so we never really used it. It was just something we would do all the time in rehearsal and play around with it. And so when we were doing Back to Oakland, we had done all the basic tracks. I flew back home. We were in Seattle, and I had flown back home. And a few days later, Mimi, Emilio, the band leader, Mimi calls me and he says, "Hey man, we're not done. We got to do one more song. We don't have enough, music for each side." And so, okay. So the only thing that I could think of to do, I went back up there. We were going to put another song together, was that beat. And I showed him the beat. I said, "Why don't we put something around this?" I showed him the beat. Him and Doc, they came up with some lyrics, and the guys with the horns and all that stuff. And we started rehearsing and putting it together. And the Oakland Stroke, they called it the Oakland Stroke, and it went on the record. So it was by accident.
You and Rocco are probably one of the greatest rhythm section there ever was. What do you attribute that to?
Well, I guess kind of, our personalities kind of have a lot to do with it. I kind of have a sort of a aggressive personality, and musically, I kind of, just the way that I perceive music and, rhythm and everything. And Rocco, he's more of an intuitive sort of a player. He doesn't really know much about what he does. He doesn't understand really theory or anything like that. He just kind of plays. He kind of plays what he hears, and he plays in a very instinctive, sort of way. And so our personalities worked really good together because I had definite things that I was doing, and he had the ability to fit himself into it. And so he was like, he has, to me, like radar, like no other bass player, no other person, just the ability to play with a drummer, it's phenomenal. I remember in the beginning, I was making cassette recordings of rehearsals, just so that I could listen and hear what was going on. And that's when cassettes started happening, and you could, that was the newest technology. So I had my little tape recorder, and I had rehearsals and all that stuff. And so I'm listening back, and I noticed that when I would play on the hi-hat, and it was all very tight, he would play these really tight kind of percussive sort of notes. And then when I play on the ride cymbal, which was a wider, more legato kind of sound, he would widen his sound. And then I go back to the hi-hat, and he tightened everything up. And it was this breathing thing. It was just back and forth all the time. You had these legato sections where I'm on the cymbals and more noises going on, more sound. And then when I come back, we play verses and everything's really tight. He tightened up his sound. So I asked him, I said, "Bro, do you know that you do this?" I explained to him what I was hearing. I said, why are you doing that? And so he says, "Well, because I think that's what I'm supposed to do. That's what people go to school to try to learn that." And Rocco had it kind of intuitively, So that's Rocco, and we never really discussed what we did. We just played, listened to each other and played together, which is really the best way to have a relationship with people, is to listen to each other, right?
Right.
So, that's what we do,
Do you listen to other kind of musics, like rap music and stuff like that?
Yeah, I listen to all kinds of stuff. My son is a hip hop freak. So, he's got all of these guys, 2 Chainz and all these guys that he listens to. And, it's not necessarily my kind of thing, because I like more melody in music. That's just me, because that's the way I grew up, And, but you know, I listen to it because it's around my house all the time. I hear it, you know.
David, what don't you like about the drum set?
Because it's hard as hell. This is hard, man. Come on. You know, it takes a lot of effort to assemble your voice, you know, to get to your voice and to discover yourself and all this, you know, and learn all these different things, you know. It just takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort to do it. Sometimes you don't want to work that hard sometimes, you know. But if you want to be great at what you do, that's the price you pay. You put in the time. That's what you got to do.
Can you tell us, if it's not too personal, how's your health and what happened in that accident that we all heard of? What happened that evening, David?
Well, my health is really good. I mean, you know,
Good.
I make it that way. You know, I live a pretty healthy lifestyle. You know, I work out all the time. I eat good. You know, I try to think the right stuff, you know, because really it starts with your thinking. If you have a mindset about life and about what you do, your life kind of follows your thoughts. It doesn't kind of follow your thoughts. It does follow your thoughts. And so the accident was pretty life-changing in a way, you know. We had been playing, we have this place that we play here in Oakland called Yoshi's. And Yoshi's is like a real famous Bay Area institution, kind of jazz place, music club. And there was like 2 or 3 of them around the Bay Area, but the one in Oakland, that's the one that's kind of like their flagship place. I mean, it's a restaurant and tons of people play there all the time, you know, great music venue. It's in downtown Oakland, right? It's a couple blocks away from where we started. So we would do a residency there. And we would do, this particular one was 6 nights, 12 shows. And so we were wearing that place out. There was lines around the block every night, sold out shows. The band was killing. My friend Mark, who had replaced Rocco, he was playing bass that night. And so he and I, we've known each other for many, many years, worked together in other music situations here in the Bay Area. And he's from Holland, from the Netherlands, a Dutch guy, a badass, very badass man, and just a cool person. And so he was Rocco's replacement. And so we had met for dinner, you know, before the show, kind of a tradition. We always get together and stuff. And we, you know, just to tell stories and bullshit, eat and laugh and, you know, get ready for the gig. And so we're all excited. This is like, we had sold out all the shows, and this is the last night show, 11 and 12. And so we had finished our dinner at across the street from the venue, and we see a trains going by, because this is like the port of Oakland. So right in front of Yoshi's are train tracks. Weird, but train tracks. And these huge trains go through there all the time in both directions. So there was a train as we came out of the restaurant. So we thought, well, let's walk down to the corner. We're still engaged in our conversation. Walk down the corner, we'll cross the street right where the backstage entrance is to Yoshi's on Clay Street. So we get on there, we're standing at the corner, the train's going by, and, you know, you're hearing all the noise of the train, and people are gathering behind us. And the train goes by, you're ding, 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 it's going past. So the crowd starts to move into the crosswalk. And as we get into the crosswalk, Mark and I are still talking and, you know, laughing and whatever. And we get onto the east track, and we hear somebody behind us yells, "Train." So people are scattering behind us, and we look to our left, and we're on the track. So somebody else train. We look to our left, and there is a train right there coming out of the shadows. You couldn't tell it was coming because of the sound of the train going the other way. You couldn't see that there was one coming in the opposite direction. and the two trains were converging on that intersection and that crosswalk, and the crosswalk didn't have any pedestrian safeguards on it. So you just kind of instantly, I sort of knew, man, this is not good. We're stuck. So we kind of made eye contact, and he went forward and I moved backward, and we got hit, and we both woke up on the ground in our, separate little areas there where we landed. And from there, everything was different.
Wow. Oh man. Well, we are certainly glad that it all worked out, that you're healed and you're okay. Because I can speak.
Well, it ain't me that healed me. It was like, God healed me. I have no doubts about that. I mean, every place we go, people are coming to me all the time. Man, I'm so glad that you're okay. We prayed for you guys and all that stuff. Right. So, prayer is so powerful, man. I just really believe that. And also, I have to say that your view of things that happen to you is really important. Are the things that happen to you, do you look at it kind of in a detached way, if you can, so that you can really see how to solve the situation? Or are you in it to the degree that you look at it as a sentence, that this is the way it's going to be? And so one view keeps you in it with no way, very little way out. The other view, step back, even though you're in pain and a lot of bad stuff's going on, it gives you an opportunity to look and see what could be different, what could you change. And so I remember being home for about a month, and I was really messed up. I couldn't hardly walk. I was using a cane and a walker, and my jaw was all wired and all this stuff, and my wife was feeding me and putting my clothes on in the morning. It was really screwed up. I could make it from my bedroom here in my house to the TV room across the hall. I could do that, and that was pretty much it. That was my existence. And so one morning I got up and I put my pants on by myself, and I'm thinking, wow. I looked at it as like progress, like huge progress. Like I'm getting better. Because up to that moment, I didn't know what was going to happen. I was just right in each moment, and you just don't know what it is that's going to happen. I had no vision about anything other than, let me get over and watch some more episodes of Breaking Bad. Let me do that, And so all of a sudden I realized that I was going to be okay. And then my optimism and everything started to build. And all of a sudden I went from having this narrow view of what was going on. All of a sudden, everything just kind of lit up and, continued to widen. And I started getting better. And it was because of my thinking. I refused to be in that bed. I refused to be hurt. I refused to be messed up and have my life, stopped because of that incident. And all of a sudden I wanted to get back and play. I wanted to do this. I wanted to do that. I wanted to walk. Everything changed. And so what it showed me was how important optimism is in anything.
Yeah, man. Dug down and got it, huh?
I think that's what you got to do for anything.
That's it right there. Let me ask you this question. How do you want your legacy to play out? It's all said and done. Not all said and done, literally, but 100 years from now, people are still going to be listening to you. okay, I'll soften it up. 50 years from now, they're gonna be listening to you, and they're gonna be trying to pick up. I really think only Herman Matthews is the only one that can play songs like Script Cake and that stuff. None of us, the rest of us can play that stuff. Play it right, at least. We can play it, but
Herman.
all
Yeah,
of that,
Herman's
all that
beautiful,
stuff is not in there.
Herman's beautiful, you know.
Yeah.
He's a talented man, you know, really cool guy. You know, I don't think about that stuff because for me, the story is still being written. You know, everything is still for me, everything is still right here. It's still right now. I'm still challenging myself. I'm still nervous about things I want to do and things that are happening, you know, that I want to change. And, you know, I'm still like that, you know. So the legacy and all that stuff, you know, they'll write what they're going to write, you know. But for me, the story is still being written. Now, if people learn from me after I'm gone in the same way that they learn from, you know, like Elvin and Tony and, you know, Clyde Stubblefield and, you know, all those drummers who I just loved and respected and worshiped still, you know, those, you know, man, what an awesome thing that would be, wouldn't it? I mean, to have what you do remembered by so many parts of society, you know, that it touches people of all different colors and, you know, races and nationalities. And I mean, how did I know that was going to happen? I mean, that's so cool, you know. It's a blessing, man. It's just and it's a responsibility too, because, you know, you want to, I don't know, man. I want to be, a friend of mine said it like this. He says he wants people to smile when they see him coming.
Beautiful.
I want to be like that.
That's beautiful. Black Lives Matter.
Yes, sir.
What are your thoughts on this protesting? What are your thoughts on, we're out here, we got quarantine, but we got Black Lives Matter. We finally got to a point in our life where racism sticks out and it's ugly. Are you seeing it up there? What are your thoughts on it?
It was always ugly. It was always, and so, you know, everybody talks about all lives matter and all this other stuff, you know, and that's true. But what about what's happening now with that part of our history that has been so oppressive to a group of valuable people who have contributed so much to our society? And, you know, especially like the artist thing, the music, jazz. We're not going to have jazz without great black men doing it. That's not even possible. You know, we're not going to have all that great music. And, you know, I don't know, man. You know, my heroes growing up, I don't know why, but they're all black men. That's just spoke to me, man. Their art, and then getting to meet them, and, you know, growing up here in the Bay Area where people were together, you know, at least in our part of society. I mean, there were, you know, things that were going on in society that weren't so cool, but in the community here, the music community was together. You know, we didn't see it like color. It was just people, you know, we were together. We guys living together, making music together, hanging with each other's families, you know, eating together. I mean, to me, that's life, you know, that. And so I don't know, man, it just saddens me that there's so much stuff going on that's so hurtful to people, a sensitive time, you know, in our life. And I wish that people would learn to accept each other. I wish that people would live love with each other. You understand? You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
And so I think, you know, love is a healing balm for people. Everybody responds to it, and it's so easy to do. And so I want to see that. That's what I can do. That's all I can do, you know, is love my friends, love the people I'm around. As I said, try to be somebody who, you know, puts a smile on people's face, you know, and I'm going to vote. I'm going to vote. And I hope everybody does, because, you know, I don't want to turn drums into politics. I don't want to do that, you know, because it's art and it helps people. And so, but I think that's an important involvement, you know, civic responsibility that we have, social responsibility to do everything we can to make life great for all of, you know, everyone, but especially Black people. All men are created equal. It's good on paper, but we never, in practice, we don't do that. We have hatred and all this crazy stuff that I see, people hating on each other. You know, I mean, this is a tough thing to answer, man. I don't have answers for it. All I have is the answer for me and my family, you know, how we respond.
We do a thing on the show. Thank you for that, David. We do a thing on the show we call Word of Advice. Whereas I asked the drummers if they would leave a word of advice, a parting word. I asked JR that question. He said, one word? You mean one word? It was fun. I never got that answer. We asked that the drummers would leave words of advice for up-and-coming drummers that are trying to get some traction in their career and trying to get on board, trying to get on radar as players, as musicians. What would you say to those guys? Would you leave them a word, please?
Can I do words? Plural?
I gotta figure out how to ask that question because I always get nailed on that one.
I can do words that probably you could, you know, distill down into one word, you know.
I think I'm gonna change that. I'm gonna call it words of advice from now on. That's what I'm gonna call it.
There you go. You know, I would say get your head together and understand that what we do here and what happens in all areas of life takes a lot of work. There's not a secret, you know, there's not a secret to it. All the great men that we admire, that we look up to, you know, that we call genius and all this other stuff, you know, genius, as I said before, you know, I like that quote, genius is persistence in disguise. And so, you know, you have to craft a life for yourself. You have to have a mindset that allows you to create what you want to be. And then you have to dig in and start doing it. Use your imagination. Create a life for yourself, you know. Always be respectful to each other. I mean, all of those things that we know that you're supposed to be doing, do them, because that is what is going to help you, you know, move forward in life. That's all I can say, man. You know, just work, love, respect. A lot of good stuff comes back to you when you do that.
Let me say thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Man, man, you almost make me want to cry, man. I mean, it's just,
I didn't mean to take you down, man.
No, you didn't. It didn't take me down, man. It's just, you know, all the things that are happening today, you know, with everybody, and you see people's pain. I mean, I see it, you know, when you know, I look at Facebook and you see people posting their pain on there, you know, and sometimes it's people that you know. And if you're posting your pain on social media, why aren't you reaching out to a friend or a loved one and seeing if you can get some relief for that pain so that you can be together with someone? it just, I don't know, man. I just think we're all together in this. We're all in this life together. And I want to see that continue. I want to see it get deeper and better, you know? And all this crazy stuff that's going on, we need healing, man. We got to heal. And I know that love heals people. I know that. I've seen it. It works. But that's, you know, you and me. We love each other. We're doing what we're supposed to do.
That's it right there, man. You've said it, and you've said it on the drum kit too, many a times, and we appreciate it. Will you help us wave goodbye to everybody? We'll see you.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. God bless you all. God bless you all. See you down the road.
Talk to you so much, man. Bye now. Thank you for joining us here on Extraordinary Drummers.
So, with the capital F. Don't you know that we dig so, yeah. With the capital F. I'm talking about some good old funky soul. With the capital F. That get down soul. That's what I like. With the capital F. Sweet soul music. With the capital F. Funky music. With the capital F. Power music. With the capital F. I like it the best, y'all. Thank you. We